Good evening, and welcome to a quiet corner of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Tonight, we're going to embark on a long, peaceful journey through some of the most fascinating mysteries that have captivated fans of The Office for years. These are the theories that have emerged from careful observation, from watching between the lines, from noticing the small details that might reveal hidden truths about our beloved Dunder Mifflin family. So settle in, get comfortable, and let your mind wander through these gentle mysteries as we explore what might have been happening behind the scenes in that familiar office building. We have many stories to tell tonight, each one a doorway into the secret lives of people who seem so ordinary on the surface, yet may be hiding extraordinary depths beneath. The Gentle Genius, Michael Scott's Hidden Intelligence. Let's begin with perhaps the most surprising theory of all. The idea that Michael Scott, our seemingly bumbling regional manager, might actually be a secret genius. Picture this. Beneath all those inappropriate jokes and awkward moments, there might be a brilliant businessman carefully orchestrating his success. Think about it quietly for a moment. Michael's branch consistently outperforms all the others. While other regional managers struggle and face closures, Scranton thrives. The numbers don't lie, yet no one can quite explain how Michael achieves these results. Even when corporate tries to discover his secret, they come up empty-handed, baffled by his methods. Some believe Michael deliberately acts foolish to lower expectations, allowing him to surprise everyone with his actual competence. When he needs to be serious, like during the Michael Scott Paper Company negotiations, he shows remarkable business acumen. He knows exactly how to read people, how to make them feel comfortable, how to close deals that others would fumble. Consider his famous catchphrase, "That's what she said." What if this isn't just mindless humor, but actually a calculated way to defuse tension and create a sense of camaraderie? What if Michael understands that laughter breaks down barriers and makes people more willing to do business with him? Imagine Michael alone in his office after everyone has gone home, dropping the facade for just a moment. He sits at his desk, reviewing sales figures and market reports with sharp, calculating eyes. He knows exactly what he's doing, has always known. The bumbling fool is just a character he plays because he understands that people trust someone they underestimate. There's something beautiful about this theory, isn't there? The idea that all those years of seemingly random behavior were actually calculated moves by someone who understood people better than anyone. The Quiet Accountant, Kevin's Elaborate Deception. Now let's drift over to the accounting department, where Kevin Malone sits quietly at his desk, seemingly struggling with basic math. But what if Kevin's apparent simplicity was actually an elaborate cover for something much more sophisticated? The theory goes that Kevin deliberately plays dumb to hide the fact that he's been embezzling money from Dunder Mifflin. Think about how he was able to purchase a bar after leaving the company, a business venture that would require significant capital. Consider his odd comments about insider trading, his mysterious references to complex financial concepts that seem to slip out before he catches himself. But there's more to this theory than simple theft. Some fans believe Kevin's deception runs much deeper. Notice how Holly, the replacement HR representative, is easily convinced by Dwight that Kevin is mentally challenged. What if Kevin encouraged this perception? What if he found that people were less likely to scrutinize his work if they believed he was struggling with basic cognitive functions? Picture Kevin late at night, working with numbers that flow as smoothly as water. His fingers dance across calculators and computers with practiced ease. All day, he pretends to stumble over simple addition, to drop his famous chili, to make endearing mistakes. But in private, he's orchestrating a complex financial scheme that no one suspects because they're all too busy underestimating him. Watch Kevin's face during meetings about the company's financial troubles. There's sometimes a flicker of something, not confusion, but knowledge. He knows things he shouldn't know, understands implications that go right over everyone else's heads. His supposed inability to speak in complete sentences might actually be a brilliant way to avoid saying too much. There's something almost peaceful about imagining Kevin as this quiet mastermind, patiently playing his role while secretly securing his future. Sometimes the most unassuming people are the ones with the most interesting secrets. And Kevin's gentle demeanor might be the perfect cover for a brilliant mind working behind the scenes. The mysterious outsider, Creed's true identity and dark past. Let's turn our attention to one of the most enigmatic figures in the office, Creed Bratton. Sitting in the back corner of the office, Creed seems to exist in his own strange world, making odd comments that hint at a much darker and more complex past than anyone could imagine. The theory suggests that Creed Bratton isn't actually Creed Bratton at all. He's really William Charles Schneider, a man who assumed Creed's identity after something happened to the real Creed. The evidence is subtle but compelling. Creed seems to know things he shouldn't, has access to information that doesn't quite make sense for his position, and occasionally drops hints about activities that would be highly illegal. But this theory goes even deeper. Some fans believe that Creed might be connected to organized crime, possibly even the mafia. Think about his casual mentions of violence, his knowledge of how to dispose of bodies, his mysterious trips and unexplained absences. What if Creed's job at Dunder Mifflin is just a cover, a way to launder money or maintain a legitimate identity while conducting much more serious business? There's also the possibility that Creed is connected to the mysterious Scranton Strangler case that haunted the city during the show's run. His timing, his knowledge, his complete lack of surprise when violent events occur. It all adds up to someone who might know more about the area's criminal activity than he's letting on. Picture Creed in his car after work, driving through the quiet streets of Scranton. The bumbling office worker persona falls away, replaced by someone much more dangerous and calculating. He makes phone calls in languages that would surprise his coworkers, visits places that don't appear on any map, conducts business that would shock anyone who thinks they know him. But tonight, instead of focusing on the darker implications, let's simply appreciate the mystery. There's something soothing about the idea that even in a mundane office environment, there can be someone who carries the weight of an entire hidden history. Someone whose past remains beautifully and permanently unknowable. The burden of kindness, Toby's breaking point. Now we come to Toby Flenderson, the gentle HR representative who seems to absorb everyone's frustrations and complaints. Poor Toby, constantly berated by Michael, ignored by his coworkers, carrying the thankless burden of being the office's moral compass. But what if all that suppressed frustration had to go somewhere? What if Toby's constant smile and patient demeanor were hiding something much more troubled beneath the surface? The theory suggests that Toby might be the real Scranton Strangler. Consider the timing. He suddenly decided to move to Costa Rica right around the time the strangling incidents began. When he returned, the crimes seemed to follow. As someone who served on the jury for the Strangler case, he would have intimate knowledge of the investigation, perhaps even influencing the verdict to protect himself. Think about his position at Dunder Mifflin. He knows everyone's personal information, their schedules, their vulnerabilities. He understands human psychology better than anyone else in the office. It's his job to mediate conflicts and manage interpersonal relationships. What if all that knowledge became too much to bear? Picture Toby sitting alone in his small apartment, the weight of everyone's problems pressing down on him. All day he listens to complaints, mediates conflicts, tries to maintain order in a chaotic environment. Michael's constant abuse, the office's dismissive attitude, the feeling that nobody truly appreciates what he does. Perhaps the pressure of being everyone's emotional dumping ground eventually became too much to bear. But even in this dark theory, there's something tragically gentle about Toby. If true, he would be someone who snapped not out of malice, but out of the overwhelming burden of caring too much about everyone else's problems while having no outlet for his own pain. His crimes would be less about violence and more about finally, desperately trying to exert some control over a world that constantly undermines him.
The Puppet Master, David Wallace's grand design.
Let's drift up to corporate headquarters, where David Wallace sits in his pristine office, seemingly puzzled by the Scranton branch's continued success. But what if David's confusion is just an act? What if he's actually the mastermind behind everything? The theory suggests that David deliberately tells Michael sensitive information, knowing that Michael will inevitably share it with everyone else. This way, David can disseminate important news without having to be the bad guy himself. Michael becomes the unwitting messenger, taking all the heat, while David maintains his polished corporate image. Think about how often David would visit Scranton, despite having offices all over the country. He always seems to know more about the branch's internal dynamics than someone in his position should. What if David has been carefully cultivating relationships and gathering intelligence, using his corporate authority to manipulate situations from behind the scenes? Some theorists even suggest he might be the Scranton Strangler himself, using his frequent visits to the area as cover for his darker activities. His corporate jet, his flexible schedule, his detailed knowledge of the area. It would all provide perfect cover for someone leading a double life. But let's focus on the lighter interpretation tonight. Imagine David as a chess master, moving pieces around the board with subtle precision. Every conversation with Michael is carefully calculated. Every visit to Scranton serves a purpose. From his executive chair, he watches the beautiful chaos of human nature unfold, understanding that sometimes the best way to manage people is to let them think they're managing themselves. Perhaps David's real genius lies in understanding that the Scranton branch's success comes not from traditional corporate efficiency, but from the genuine human connections that develop in that strange, dysfunctional office family. By allowing Michael to maintain his unconventional management style, David might be protecting something precious, a workplace where people actually care about each other. The Ambitious Temp. Ryan Howard's Calculated Rise and Fall. Let's examine Ryan Howard, the young temp who arrives at Dunder Mifflin with big dreams and even bigger ambitions. On the surface, Ryan's story seems like a cautionary tale about corporate greed and the dangers of rapid success. But what if there's more to his story than meets the eye? The theory suggests that Ryan's entire arc, from humble temp to corporate vice president to convicted fraud, was all part of a carefully orchestrated plan. Not a plan for success, but a plan for revenge. What if Ryan never actually wanted to succeed in the traditional sense, but instead wanted to expose the corruption and incompetence of the corporate world? Think about Ryan's relationship with Michael. He endures years of inappropriate behavior, uncomfortable situations, and professional humiliation. What if all of this was building to something bigger? What if Ryan's corporate website fraud wasn't just about making money, but about proving that the entire system was corrupt and that no one in authority was actually paying attention? Consider how Ryan's schemes consistently fail in ways that seem almost deliberate. He creates a website that obviously won't work, makes business decisions that are clearly unsustainable, and conducts himself in ways that practically guarantee his downfall. What if this wasn't incompetence, but sabotage from within? Picture Ryan late at night in his corporate office, not working on legitimate business, but carefully documenting every instance of corporate malfeasance he witnesses. His drug use, his erratic behavior, his eventual arrest. All of it could be seen as the actions of someone who's deliberately destroying himself to make a point about the system he's trapped in. There's something beautifully tragic about this interpretation. Ryan as a whistleblower who sacrifices his own future to expose the truth about corporate America. His relationship with Kelly, his treatment of his former coworkers, even his eventual return to the Scranton branch. All of it takes on new meaning when viewed through this lens. The Secret Romance. Stanley and Phyllis's Hidden Connection. Now, let's explore a gentler theory. One that suggests hidden romance in the most unexpected places. Stanley Hudson and Phyllis Vance sit near each other in the office, sharing lunches and quiet conversations. On the surface, they seem like nothing more than friendly coworkers. But what if there's more to their relationship than anyone realizes? The theory suggests that Stanley and Phyllis have been carrying on a secret affair for years. Think about their body language, the way they look at each other during meetings, the inside jokes that no one else seems to understand. They share a desk cluster, eat lunch together regularly, and seem to have a connection that goes deeper than typical workplace friendship. Stanley is married, of course, and Phyllis is married to Bob Vance of Vance Refrigeration. But what if their marriages have become routine, lacking the spark that Stanley and Phyllis find in each other? What if those quiet lunch conversations are actually intimate moments stolen from their otherwise mundane lives? Picture them meeting after work, not in dramatic locations, but in quiet, ordinary places. A small diner on the outskirts of Scranton, a park bench where they can talk without being seen. Moments of genuine connection in lives that have become defined by routine and obligation. This theory doesn't require dramatic gestures or passionate declarations. Instead, it suggests something much more subtle. Two people who have found comfort and understanding in each other's company, who look forward to those small moments of connection that make the workday bearable. There's something beautiful about imagining Stanley and Phyllis as secret lovers, finding joy in small moments and quiet conversations. It transforms their workplace dynamic from mundane to romantic, suggesting that even in the most ordinary settings, extraordinary connections can bloom.
The mob connection. Bob Vance's mysterious business. Speaking of Phyllis's husband, let's examine Bob Vance of Vance Refrigeration more closely. He appears throughout the series as a successful businessman, always introduced with his full name and company. But what if Bob's refrigeration business is actually a front for something much more sinister? The theory suggests that Bob Vance is connected to organized crime, possibly even a mob boss, using his legitimate business to launder money and conduct illegal activities. Think about his behavior at company events. He's always impeccably dressed, speaks in measured tones, and seems to command respect from people who don't even know him. Consider his relationship with Phyllis. He's incredibly generous with her, buying expensive gifts and treating her like royalty. But what if this lavish lifestyle is funded by more than just refrigeration sales? What if Bob's business connections go much deeper than anyone realizes? Notice how Bob always seems to know things about people before he's properly introduced to them. He understands office politics, remembers details about coworkers he's barely met, and seems to have sources of information that go beyond casual conversation. This could be evidence of someone who's used to gathering intelligence and maintaining extensive networks. Picture Bob in his refrigeration warehouse after hours, but instead of just storing food, he's coordinating activities that would shock his wife and her coworkers. Phone calls in coded language, meetings with men in expensive suits, transactions that have nothing to do with keeping things cold. This theory doesn't make Bob a villain necessarily. Instead, it suggests someone who operates in morally gray areas, who has found ways to use legitimate business as cover for activities that exist outside the normal bounds of society. His love for Phyllis could be genuine, his generosity real, even if the source of his wealth is questionable. The calculated prankster. Jim's deeper motivations. Now let's examine Jim Halpert, the charming salesman whose pranks on Dwight provide some of the show's most beloved moments. On the surface, Jim's pranks seem like harmless fun, a way to pass time in a boring office environment. But what if there's something darker behind Jim's constant need to torment his coworker? The theory suggests that Jim's pranks aren't just innocent fun, but actually a form of psychological warfare designed to systematically undermine Dwight's confidence and effectiveness. Think about the cumulative effect of years of humiliation, practical jokes, and public embarrassment. What if Jim's behavior could actually be considered a form of workplace bullying? Consider Jim's motivations more carefully. He's clearly intelligent and capable, yet he chooses to work at a paper company in Scranton, a job that doesn't seem to challenge him intellectually. What if his pranks are actually a way of exercising power and control in a situation where he otherwise feels powerless? The pranks escalate over time, becoming more elaborate and more public. Jim doesn't just want to fool Dwight, he wants an audience, wants to demonstrate his superiority in front of his coworkers. This could be seen as the behavior of someone who needs to feel important, who uses humor as a way to establish dominance. Picture Jim planning his pranks, not in moments of spontaneous inspiration, but in careful, calculated sessions. He studies Dwight's habits, identifies his weaknesses, and designs scenarios specifically to exploit them. The fact that he documents many of these pranks with the camera crew suggests someone who wants his actions to be remembered
and celebrated. But this theory doesn't necessarily make Jim a villain. Instead, it suggests someone who's struggling with his own sense of purpose and identity, someone who uses pranks as a way to feel engaged and important in a job that doesn't fulfill him. His eventual growth and maturity, his relationship with Pam, and his move to Philadelphia could all be seen as part of his journey toward finding more constructive ways to channel his intelligence and creativity.
The Party Planning Committee. Angela's need for control. Let's turn our attention to Angela Martin, the stern head of the accounting department, who also runs the Party Planning Committee with an iron fist. Angela's obsession with controlling every detail of office celebrations might seem like simple perfectionism, but what if it reveals something deeper about her psychology? The theory suggests that Angela's need to control party planning is actually a way of compensating for areas of her life where she feels powerless. Think about her personal relationships, her secret affair with Dwight, her marriage to a man who turns out to be gay, her complicated feelings about her own sexuality and desires. Angela's parties are always precisely planned, meticulously organized, and perfectly executed, but they're also often criticized by her coworkers as boring, overly formal, or inappropriate for the occasion. What if Angela's party planning isn't really about creating fun experiences, but about creating situations where she can exercise complete control? Consider how Angela reacts when her authority is challenged. She becomes defensive, angry, and sometimes vindictive. The party planning committee becomes her personal kingdom, the one place where her word is law and her vision is paramount. This could be seen as the behavior of someone who feels marginalized or powerless in other areas of her life. Picture Angela at home, surrounded by party planning materials, color-coordinated charts, and detailed timelines. She's not just organizing a birthday party or holiday celebration, she's creating a world where everything goes according to her plan, where chaos is banished and order reigns supreme. This theory doesn't diminish Angela's character, but rather adds depth to her motivations. Her need for control becomes understandable when viewed as a response to feeling out of control in her personal life. Her eventual growth and the softening of her character could be seen as her learning to find security in relationships rather than in rigid control. The Party Planning Committee. Angela's need for control. Let's turn our attention to Angela Martin, the stern head of the accounting department, who also runs the Party Planning Committee with an iron fist. Angela's obsession with controlling every detail of office celebrations might seem like simple perfectionism, but what if it reveals something deeper about her psychology? The theory suggests that Angela's need to control party planning is actually a way of compensating for areas of her life where she feels powerless. Think about her personal relationships, her secret affair with Dwight, her marriage to a man who turns out to be gay, her complicated feelings about her own sexuality and desires. Angela's parties are always precisely planned, meticulously organized, and perfectly executed, but they're also often criticized by her coworkers as boring, overly formal, or inappropriate for the occasion. What if Angela's party planning isn't really about creating fun experiences, but about creating situations where she can exercise complete control? Consider how Angela reacts when her authority is challenged. She becomes defensive, angry,
and sometimes vindictive. The party planning committee becomes her personal kingdom, the one place where her word is law and her vision is paramount. This could be seen as the behavior of someone who feels marginalized or powerless in other areas of her life. Picture Angela at home, surrounded by party planning materials, color-coordinated charts, and detailed timelines. She's not just organizing a birthday party or holiday celebration, she's creating a world where everything goes according to her plan, where chaos is banished and order reigns supreme. This theory doesn't diminish Angela's character, but rather adds depth to her motivations. Her need for control becomes understandable when viewed as a response to feeling out of control in her personal life. Her eventual growth and the softening of her character could be seen as her learning to find security in relationships rather than in rigid control. The Desperate Romantic, Kelly's Calculated Chaos. Kelly Kapoor presents herself as a shallow, fashion-obsessed customer service representative who's primarily interested in celebrity gossip and romantic drama. But what if Kelly's seemingly frivolous behavior is actually a carefully constructed persona designed to hide her true intelligence and ambition? The theory suggests that Kelly is actually much smarter than she appears, and that her relationship with Ryan is part of a larger strategy to advance her career and secure her future. Think about Kelly's background. She's a business school graduate who somehow ended up in a dead-end customer service job. What if her apparent lack of ambition is actually a way of flying under the radar while pursuing her real goals? Consider Kelly's manipulation of Ryan throughout their relationship. She knows exactly how to push his buttons, how to make him jealous, how to keep him interested even when he's trying to move on. This could be evidence of someone who understands psychology and human behavior much better than she lets on. Kelly's constant chatter about celebrities and pop culture might actually be a way of demonstrating her understanding of marketing, public relations, and consumer behavior. Her knowledge of trends, her ability to predict what will be popular, and her understanding of social media could all be valuable business skills disguised as frivolous interests. Picture Kelly at home, not mindlessly consuming celebrity gossip, but actually studying market trends, analyzing consumer behavior, and developing strategies for her own advancement. Her relationship drama, her fashion choices, even her apparent superficiality, could all be calculated moves in a larger game. This theory doesn't make Kelly's emotions fake or her relationships insincere. Instead, it suggests someone who's learned to use her natural charisma and emotional intelligence as tools for achieving her goals. Her eventual growth and the evolution of her character could be seen as her learning to be more authentic while still maintaining her strategic thinking. The Lonely Hearts, Meredith's Hidden Depths. Meredith Palmer is often portrayed as the office alcoholic, the supplier relations representative whose personal life is a series of questionable decisions and embarrassing situations. But what if Meredith's apparent lack of professionalism is actually a response to deeper emotional pain and unfulfilled potential? The theory suggests that Meredith is actually highly intelligent and capable, but has been worn down by years of disappointment and loneliness. Think about her educational background. She has a PhD in school psychology, which suggests someone who once had serious academic and professional aspirations. What if her current behavior is a way of coping with the gap between her dreams and her reality? Consider Meredith's relationships with her coworkers. Despite her reputation for inappropriate behavior, she's generally well liked and included in office activities. People seem to understand that beneath her rough exterior, there's someone who genuinely cares about others. This could be evidence of someone who uses humor and outrageous behavior to mask emotional vulnerability. Meredith's drinking and casual relationships might be ways of numbing the pain of unfulfilled potential. Her PhD suggests someone who once believed in the possibility of making a real difference in the world, of using her education to help others. Working in supplier relations at a paper company might feel like a betrayal of her younger self's dreams. Picture Meredith at home, alone with her thoughts and her bottles, occasionally pulling out old academic papers or psychology textbooks that remind her of who she used to be. Her outrageous stories and shocking behavior could be ways of ensuring that people remember her, even if they don't remember her for the reasons she once hoped. This theory adds depth and pathos to Meredith's character, transforming her from comic relief into someone struggling with disappointment and lost dreams. Her loyalty to her coworkers, her unexpected moments of wisdom, and her resilience in the face of personal challenges could all be seen as evidence of someone who's maintained her essential humanity despite her circumstances. The Forbidden Romance. Roy and Angela's Secret Affair. Let's explore a theory that suggests hidden passion in the most unexpected places. What if Roy Anderson, Pam's former fiancé, and Angela Martin, the stern head of accounting, were carrying on a secret affair during Roy's engagement to Pam? The theory suggests that Roy's wandering eye and Angela's repressed desires led them to find each other in moments of weakness. Think about their interactions. There's often tension between them, but not the kind of tension that suggests dislike. Instead, it's the tension of two people who are trying very hard not to acknowledge their attraction. Consider Roy's behavior toward the end of his relationship with Pam. He becomes increasingly distant, increasingly uninterested in planning their wedding or building a future together. What if this wasn't just about taking Pam for granted, but about his attention being focused elsewhere? What if he was struggling with feelings for someone completely different from Pam? Someone uptight where Pam is relaxed, controlling where Pam is accommodating. Picture Roy and Angela meeting in secret, perhaps in the warehouse after hours, or in parking lots away from the office. Angela, who spends her days maintaining perfect control over every detail, might find Roy's rough edges and simple directness irresistibly liberating. Roy, who feels trapped by expectations and commitments, might be drawn to Angela's intensity and hidden passion. This theory adds a layer of complexity to both characters. Roy's reluctance to commit to Pam becomes less about laziness and more about genuine confusion about what he wants. Angela's judgmental attitude toward other people's relationships becomes a way of deflecting attention from her own complicated feelings. There's something beautifully tragic about imagining these two characters, so different on the surface, finding unexpected connection in their shared sense of being trapped by other people's expectations of who they should be. The Predatory Outsider, Todd Packer's Calculated Manipulation. Now let's examine Todd Packer, the traveling salesman whose visits to the office always bring chaos and discomfort. On the surface, Todd seems like a crude, thoughtless person who makes inappropriate comments without considering their impact. But what if Todd's behavior is actually much more calculated and sinister? The theory suggests that Todd deliberately uses his reputation as a harmless buffoon to get away with increasingly serious misconduct. Think about how he operates. He pushes boundaries just far enough to make people uncomfortable, but not so far that they feel justified in taking serious action against him. This could be the behavior of someone who understands exactly how to manipulate social situations to his advantage. Consider Todd's relationship with Michael. He maintains just enough friendship to ensure he always has a protector in management, someone who will defend him and minimize his actions. But notice how Todd treats Michael when no one else is around. There's often a coldness there, a lack of genuine affection that suggests their friendship is more strategic than sincere. Todd's traveling salesman position gives him access to multiple offices, multiple groups of potential victims, and the perfect cover for any number of questionable activities. He can disappear for weeks at a time, show up unexpectedly, and always have a legitimate business reason for being wherever he is. Picture Todd planning his visits, not just for business purposes, but to maximize his opportunities for manipulation and misconduct. He studies office dynamics, identifies vulnerable targets, and tailors his approach to exploit weaknesses in workplace culture and management oversight. This theory transforms Todd from a simple bore into something much more dangerous, a predator who uses his position and carefully cultivated reputation to avoid consequences for increasingly serious behavior. His eventual departure from the company becomes not just a relief, but a narrow escape from someone who might have caused much more serious harm. The broken executive, Jan's tragic descent. Let's turn our attention to Jan Levinson, the former vice president whose relationship with Michael becomes increasingly troubled as the series progresses. Jan's story is often played for comedy, but what if her erratic behavior and poor decisions are actually symptoms of a much deeper psychological breakdown? The theory suggests that Jan's affair with Michael isn't just about rebellion or poor judgment, but about someone desperately trying to reclaim a sense of control and agency in a life that has become unbearable. Think about Jan's position at corporate. She's surrounded by men who don't respect her, working in an industry that doesn't value her contributions, fighting battles that seem increasingly pointless. Consider the theory that Jan had a relationship with Hunter, her former assistant. There are suggestions that Jan and Hunter had a connection, particularly given her reaction to his song, That One Night, and her pattern of being drawn to younger men. What if Jan's relationships with subordinates are actually about finding people who see her as powerful and desirable, rather than as a threat to be neutralized? Jan's increasingly erratic behavior, the breast enhancement, the candle business, the volatile relationship with Michael, could all be seen as the actions of someone who's trying desperately to feel alive and relevant in a world that's systematically diminishing her. Her corporate success becomes meaningless when she realizes that no amount of professional achievement will earn her the respect and autonomy she craves. Picture Jan alone in her condo, surrounded by the trappings of success, but feeling completely empty. Her relationship with Michael, despite its obvious problems, might be the only place where she feels genuinely needed and desired. The fact that it's inappropriate and destructive doesn't matter. It's the only connection that makes her feel human. This theory adds depth and pathos to Jan's character, transforming her from a simple antagonist into someone struggling with the impossible demands of being a woman in corporate America. Someone whose breakdown is both personal and political. The Mismatched Lovers, Andy and Erin's Doomed Romance. Let's examine the relationship between Andy Bernard and Erin Hannon, a romance that seems sweet on the surface, but may have been doomed from the very beginning. The theory suggests that their relationship was never really about love, but about two people trying to convince themselves they could be someone they're not. Some fans believe that Michael Scott actually knew Andy and Aaron were wrong for each other and that Aaron deserved better, using his surprising insight into human nature to gently guide Aaron toward recognizing the truth about their compatibility. Think about Andy's personality. He's needy, attention-seeking, and often oblivious to other people's feelings. Erin, despite her quirky exterior, is actually quite perceptive and emotionally intelligent. What if their relationship was really about Andy's need for validation and Erin's desire to be needed rather than genuine compatibility? Consider how Andy treats Aaron when he's under pressure or feeling insecure. He becomes dismissive, condescending, even cruel. Andy's character development was undone in the final season, as he reverted back to his old ways after manager training, making his behavior unwarranted. This could be seen as evidence that his nicer persona during their courtship was just an act, a way of winning her over rather than genuine growth. Erin's eventual relationship with Pete might represent her finally choosing someone who appreciates her for who she really is, rather than someone who sees her as a prop in his own story. Andy's inability to fight for their relationship could be seen as unconscious recognition that they were never really right for each other. Picture Andy and Erin in quiet moments, when they're not performing their relationship for others. There's often awkwardness there, moments when they seem to be trying to convince themselves, as much as each other, that they belong together. Their breakup becomes inevitable, not because of external circumstances, but because relationships built on false foundations cannot survive the weight of reality. The overqualified receptionist. Oscar's hidden ambitions. Now let's consider Oscar Martinez, the intelligent and educated accountant who often seems overqualified for his position at Dunder Mifflin. Oscar has a college degree, is clearly well-read and culturally sophisticated, and often displays knowledge that goes far beyond basic accounting. So why is he content to stay in a job that doesn't seem to challenge him intellectually? The theory suggests that Oscar is actually using his position at Dunder Mifflin as a cover while pursuing other ambitions. Perhaps he's working on a novel, conducting research for a political career, or building connections in the business community. His steady job provides financial security and health benefits, while he pursues his real passions. Consider Oscar's behavior during office crises. He often seems detached, almost amused by the chaos around him. This could be the attitude of someone who doesn't see his current position as his real career, someone who's essentially slumming until he can move on to something better. Oscar's relationship with the state senator might be more strategic than romantic. What if Oscar is actually cultivating political connections, positioning himself for a future career in government or policy? His intelligence and cultural sophistication would serve him well in political circles, and his current job gives him insight into small business concerns that could be valuable in policy making. Picture Oscar at home, not just relaxing after a day at the office, but working on projects that none of his coworkers know about. He's writing, researching, networking, building toward a future that has nothing to do with paper sales, but everything to do with his real ambitions and talents. This theory doesn't diminish Oscar's current relationships or suggest that his friendships aren't genuine. Instead, it adds another layer to his character, suggesting someone who's playing a longer game than anyone realizes. The substitute reality.
Holly's perfect timing. Let's examine Holly Flax, the HR representative who seems to arrive at exactly the right moment to become Michael's perfect match. Holly's timing, her personality, and her seemingly perfect compatibility with Michael might be too convenient to be coincidental. The theory suggests that Holly was specifically chosen and sent to Scranton not just as a temporary HR replacement, but as part of a corporate strategy to manage Michael's increasingly problematic behavior. Think about it. Corporate has been dealing with Michael's lawsuits, inappropriate conduct, and general chaos for years. What if they decided that the best way to control him wasn't through punishment, but through providing him with exactly what he needed to become more manageable? Holly's background in psychology, her immediate understanding of Michael's personality, and her ability to redirect his worst impulses could all be evidence of someone who's been carefully briefed on her assignment. Her quirky personality and apparent compatibility with Michael might be the result of careful study and preparation, rather than natural affinity. Consider how Holly handles Michael's inappropriate behavior. She doesn't shut him down or report him. Instead, she channels his energy in more positive directions. This could be seen as expert manipulation by someone who understands exactly how to manage difficult personalities. Picture Holly before her arrival in Scranton, studying Michael's personnel file, watching videos of his training seminars, learning everything she can about his psychology and motivations. Her assignment isn't just to fill in as HR, but to provide corporate with a long-term solution to their Michael Scott problem. This theory doesn't make Holly's feelings insincere or her relationship with Michael fake. Instead, it suggests that sometimes the best relationships begin with one person understanding exactly what the other person needs, even if that understanding comes from professional rather than personal insight. The philosophical question, is the office actually purgatory? As we near the end of our journey through these theories, let's consider one final, overarching possibility that ties everything together. What if the Scranton branch of Dunder Mifflin isn't just a workplace, but actually a form of purgatory, where souls must work through their personal issues before moving on to whatever comes next? This theory suggests that each character represents a different type of person struggling with specific challenges. Michael must learn to be genuinely caring rather than just seeking approval. Jim and Pam must learn to take risks and pursue their dreams. Angela must learn to accept others' differences and her own desires. Stanley must learn to find meaning in his work and relationships. Think about how the office functions as a contained environment where the same people interact day after day, working through conflicts and relationships in an endless cycle. Characters come and go, but the core group remains, facing the same challenges over and over until they learn the lessons they need to learn. Creed, in this theory, becomes a kind of guardian angel or guide, someone who's been there longer than anyone else and understands the true nature of their situation. His strange comments and mysterious past could be evidence of someone who's not bound by the same rules as everyone else, someone who's there to help guide the others through their journeys. The documentary crew becomes a metaphor for higher powers, observing and recording the progress of each soul. The fact that they're always there, always watching, but never truly interfering, suggests entities that are interested in the outcome, but bound by rules about direct intervention. Picture the office after hours, when all the employees have gone home and the cameras have stopped rolling. In the quiet darkness, the space transforms into something more ethereal, more spiritual. The desks and computers fade into shadow, leaving only the essential truths about human nature and the work that each soul must do to progress.
This theory doesn't diminish the reality of the characters' experiences or emotions. Instead, it suggests that their struggles, their relationships, and their growth are all part of a larger spiritual journey. The mundane details of paper sales and office politics become meaningful when viewed as metaphors for the deeper work of understanding oneself and learning to connect with others. A gentle conclusion, the beauty of mystery. As we reach the end of our long journey through these theories, take a moment to appreciate the beautiful complexity that fans have discovered in what might seem like a simple workplace comedy. Each theory we've explored tonight offers a different way of understanding the characters who have become so familiar to us, so dear to our hearts. Whether Michael is a secret genius, carefully managing his image, or simply a well-meaning manager who sometimes stumbles into success, doesn't diminish the warmth and humanity he brings to his role. Whether Kevin is an embezzler hiding behind a facade of simplicity, or genuinely someone who struggles with numbers but excels at kindness, doesn't change the fact that he makes us smile. The beauty of these theories lies not in their absolute truth, but in their ability to add depth and richness to characters who already feel real enough to inspire such passionate speculation. They remind us that everyone around us might be carrying secrets, dreams, and complexities that we never imagine. Think about your own workplace, your own daily interactions with people who might seem ordinary on the surface. What theories might someone develop about your motivations, your relationships, your hidden depths? What mysteries might you be unknowingly creating through your own behavior and choices? As you close your eyes tonight, let your mind wander through the quiet halls of Dunder Mifflin, Scranton. Picture the office after hours, when all the phones have stopped ringing and all the computers have been shut down. In that peaceful silence, all these theories can coexist. All these possibilities can be true at once. Imagine Jim and Pam, their love story unfolding in real time, finding ways to connect despite the obstacles in their path. Picture Dwight, whether he's a simple beet farmer or something more complex, pursuing his passions with unwavering dedication. See Angela, organizing and controlling what she can while learning to accept what she cannot change. Think of Stanley, counting down the days to retirement while quietly observing everything around him. Envision Kelly, whether she's genuinely frivolous or secretly strategic, bringing energy and unpredictability to every situation. Consider Meredith using humor and outrageous behavior to mask deeper pain and unfulfilled dreams. Remember Ryan, whether he's a failed executive or a deliberate saboteur, learning hard lessons about ambition and authenticity. Picture Toby, carrying the weight of everyone's problems while struggling with his own isolation and frustration. See David Wallace, whether he's a confused executive or a master manipulator, trying to understand the strange success of this peculiar branch. And finally, think of Creed, sitting in his corner of the office, carrying secrets that span decades and mysteries that may never be solved. Whether he's a criminal, a guardian angel, or simply an eccentric old man, he reminds us that some questions are more beautiful when they remain unanswered. These theories, these mysteries, these gentle speculations about the hidden lives of fictional characters serve a purpose beyond entertainment. They remind us to look more carefully at the people around us, to consider the possibility that everyone has a story worth telling, secrets worth keeping, and depths worth exploring. The office building in Scranton may be just a set. The characters may be just actors playing roles, but the human truths they represent are real. The need for connection, the struggle with identity, the balance between ambition and contentment, the search for meaning in mundane circumstances. These are the eternal questions that make us human. As you drift off to sleep tonight, carry with you the comfort of knowing that mystery and meaning can be found in the most ordinary places. Whether you work in an office, a store, a factory, or anywhere else, you are surrounded by stories waiting to be discovered, by people whose hidden depths might surprise and delight you if you take the time to look. Sleep well and dream of the gentle mysteries that surround us every day, hiding in plain sight among the ordinary moments of our lives. Dream of paper sales that might mean something more, of pranks that might reveal deeper truths, of love stories that bloom in the most unexpected places. Good night from Scranton, Pennsylvania. May your dreams be filled with the warm certainty that even in the most mundane places, magic can be found by those who know how to look for it. May you wake tomorrow with eyes open to the mysteries that surround you, ready to discover the hidden depths in the ordinary people who share your days. And remember, whether you're selling paper or pursuing dreams, whether you're planning parties or solving puzzles, whether you're answering phones or managing people, you are part of someone else's story, just as they are part of yours. In the great tapestry of human connection, every thread matters, every story has value, and every mystery makes the whole more beautiful. Sweet dreams, and may all your theories lead you to greater understanding, deeper compassion, and more profound appreciation for the beautiful complexity of the human experience.